The bids are in. The gavel is dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine auctions, wine retail, and just wine. I am Jeff McGurn with the WineBid marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul Walker, the Emperor of Enophiles, our wine expert. Thanks.
I was wondering what you were going to come up with this week since you've been gone for so long, Jeff.
I've been gone for so long. I went on a vacation. Paul and I were just talking. I went on vacation to Southeast Asia with my family, and I did see a lot of wine. None of it was a good deal. Really nothing worth buying because, duties and taxes and stuff make it prohibitively expensive. But even outside of that, it's just crazy expensive there. Even a duty free. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because I live in California. Maybe it's because I buy all my wine at auction. But I feel like anytime I step into a duty free shop, like everyone else is like, what great deals. And I find no good deals. I cannot find a good deal in duty free compared to what I feel like we can get it at.
You won't.
I just
anyway.
Won't. This episode,
the rest of us have not been on vacation. We've been, actively studying the auctions and bringing the wines in and everything else. So.
Yes. Well, I've been gallivanting around Southeast Asia. They've been working hard to get. You missed
a lot of exciting action. There's been a lot of crazy wine, and it's peak season as usual. Even auctions obviously surf off the wave of the end of the year and gift giving and buying and all sorts of stuff. So it's been super busy.
Let's recap this week's auction and let's talk about some of that craziness.
We always want to qualify the auction. We're recapping the auction that closed last evening.
Whatever, you know what I meant.
The 3rd of December, last night's auction closed last night, 7 p.m. Pacific. So everyone knows. Everyone knows.
Let's start with the stuff that we saw a lot of bids on. Okay. We had this 2011 Etienne Sauzet Puny Montrachet. We had 8 of them, but they all sold with 9 bids, jumping up to $66. That was super interesting. It was interesting to see action on splits, right? We had the 2014 Reese Alpine Vineyard Pinot Noir splits. We sold 5 of those with 9 bids they started at 25, went up to like $32 a piece. And then we had a couple.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious about, because Reese, this is interesting. I might actually go take a look at these because Reese bottled a lot of these wines in 500 mLs too. And the bottles look remarkably similar. So I'm actually going to check and make sure that is correct, but they're not readily available. I think they're mailing list only items that you can opt in and purchase if you want. I think you also have to have been a longtime member in order to be offered these, as well as, purchase your full allocation. So, but they're good deals. They're, the 14 Alpine in half bottle, $25 is not expensive. No. And it's a super collectible wine. It's they're making phenomenal Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Santa Cruz Mountains. They have been for a long time. So yeah, those are interesting wines. And I think there were quite a few of them in last week, and a lot of them ended up selling. The other half bottle that's pretty interesting is the 01 Montrose that got bid way out.
I was just looking at that. We had 2 of those, started at $65. They each went for $100.
Yeah. So, and that's, 01, I was going to look at the 01 750 Hammer, the recent Hammer, because that wine's relatively, available. It's not, last Hammer was 140. So paying 100 and, plus for the half bottles, it's not a super great deal. But yeah, again, super collectible format, not easily found. So it's interesting they got that kind of attention, but it did get bid up quite a bit more than I would have expected.
We had some movement on the 15 domain Bellouard.
Yeah. So Bellouard we've talked about before because it's another unfortunate scenario where the founder or producer is no longer with us and the wines have become subsequently more collectible. They have popped in relatively often in recent weeks. It seems like every other week or even every week there's a Bellouard wine. So there must be greater representation as far as, sales in California or in the US for this stuff, because you used to not see it very often at all. But interesting wines from Savoie. I don't have a lot of experience with them, but they're gaining traction in the auction for sure.
Yeah, I mean this week alone they gained something like 50% in value just just with the auction. We've got the '08 Alain Houdelot Noala Chambois Moussini. 3 of those had 6 bids taken from 75 to 96. That was interesting.
Not too surprising. It's not something we've see a ton of. The Village Chambon. We see a lot of the Permit Crus and the Grand Crus as well, but not a ton of the Village wines. And I think there's only been maybe a case sold in the last few years at auction. So yeah, it's a bit of a rare one. Not too surprising since the mid 2000s, solid vintages from 05 and 08, 9, 10 that they're going for close to $100. So that's not terribly surprising.
The '08 Puffini Arbois Vinjon 620 milliliters started at 90, but broke into the hundreds, went for 151. I mean, this is one of those. I mean, look, we talk about we talk about these every time that they come into auction. They just seem to continually be creeping up and up and up and up.
Yeah, Jura, like sort of well known, or even wines with cult followings in Jura have really done well, but it always seems to be the same kind of 10 producers, that we see pretty often, and Puffini is no difference. That I just looked up for fun, but the last time we saw this was 2 years ago, so it's not like it's coming through the auction very often.
Right.
And previously was 2 years before that, so it's not an easy one to find. But we do see a fair amount of Vin Jaune come through. I think there were actually several bottles in last week of various producers from Jura. So it's not impossible to nail down. But yeah, that's a lot of activity for a single bottle of Vin Jaune.
That's a lot of activity. Another one that I thought was interesting was '06 Marie at Pierre Bentiere.
Yeah, Bentiere wines are picking up speed. That's a surprising one for me too, because we've again another producer where every few weeks there's a bottle or two in, but that's a big jump.
That's a huge. I mean that's a huge jump, right? So this is not a bottle that we've not seen this particular bottle at auction before, but starting at 126, bids took it to sell for 190, almost breaking the 200 mark, right? That's a pretty big jump in value.
It appears to me, just looking at vintages of the past, that there's not a lot of history on anything before 2009 at all. So that's a rare one for sure. Because there was also '09 was in last night too, and that hammered at 160. Yeah, I mean, more recent vintages like 13. So Glass Hammer was 135, and that was recently. So the wines have been around, but it looks like these mid and 2010 looks like it goes for quite a bit too. Goes for 225. So yeah, valuable rare wines from Côte Rôtie. I know this producer, but I'm unfortunately not familiar with it. I have not had nearly enough. And so, now they become more and more collectible.
I thought another one that was interesting, this '06 Selbach Oster Settlinger Sonnenur Riesling Spätlese Trocken. Started at 25, hammered at 42, almost doubling in price, getting close there. We had some 14 Christmann Königsbacher IDIG Riesling Grosses Gewachs. 5 bids took 2 bottles from 45 to 51. Right.
Yeah, this is an unknown wine to me. I know there's been a little bit of it. Looks like last couple of weeks there was 15 and 14. It's the same AP numbers, and I think those are the only sales of this wine we've ever seen. So yeah, that's a rare one.
It's like just the stuff seems to be moving up and up and up, and then this '06 Alain Houdelot.
Yeah, same thing as like Chambois Musigny. Interestingly, yeah. I'm surprised actually that the Von Rome didn't sell for more, but it's a lot of 06 seems to be the main theme here.
Yeah,
kind of funny.
People super interested with the '06 Burgundy vintage, huh?
Yeah, I mean, when they pop up, especially wines like that, they're so limited to begin with. So when they were sold, on release, there was probably very few just available in whatever market, the collector was buying. So
It's just interesting because, like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong here, but '06 was not necessarily standout vintage of Burgundy, right? Like,
no, it's overshadowed by '05 for sure. But, collectors of that wine are going to know, especially if they know, if they've had it before, it's, a very solid producer. They're traditionally been much better deals than, some of their counterparts that are exceedingly expensive. So, yeah.
let's take a look at some of the heavy hitters, right? And let's take a look at some of the stuff
Sure.
there. And, really leading the pack, we've got, 3 cases of Harlan OWC, case of 13 Harlan Estate, 2 cases of 15 Harlan Estate. The 13 selling for 13 selling for, actually there were 2 bids. Apologies. They had 2 bids on that. So that was competitive for the 6-bottle lot of the 13 Harlan Estate, sold for $69.20, right? So just a little bit over $1,000 a bottle. And then we've got the 15s sold, each of them sold for $6,120. Right?
Yeah, the funny thing about the 13, actually, I think all 3 of these lots, the 13 and the 2 15s, is that they had been in auction for a couple of weeks, and they got passed over, and then then 2 weeks later, multiple bids on the same lot. So you never know.
You just never know. Always keep an eye out. But it's been interesting to see the movement on these, because you saw, this Harlan, we first saw an auction in 2017, went for $4,680. This is the 2013 6-bottle lot OWC.
Yeah.
It crept up in 2022 to 7,100, right?
Yeah.
In January,
now it's getting back there, 69.20. You're getting real close. So,
but in January of 2023, it got down to 6,060, right? And like to your point, now it's coming back up, right? Where we're seeing back up close to that $7,000 mark, which I think is interesting. We had a 14 Costa Rica Corton Charlemagne, which sold for $48.75. This one I thought was interesting. The 61 Krug sold for $3,610.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there was a really gorgeous batch of champagne in. This was a few weeks back that we had talked about. I think there was some, the 61 Krug collection. I'm almost positive I mentioned this wine because it's just so amazing. There was some Clos de Menil and some other stuff as well, but it took a couple of weeks. But yeah, there was definitely somebody wanted to go after that. I mean, it's an amazing condition as well. So.
We had a 09, a case, 12-bottle case, OWC of 09 Montrose for $3,300. And then one of the bottles that we've been talking about a while ago was 08. Well, we're talking about a different Cros Parenteau, but this 08 Emmanuel Rouget Von Romani Cros Parenteau Mag sold for $32.90. Some really interesting stuff. What am I missing here, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, superstars. There was a decent amount of Meunier wines in last week. 05 Musigny, they were at 3,200. There was a 6-pack of the Marichal from 16. Actually, there were 3 6-packs. So, that's a lot of Meunier in one setting. Older Screaming Eagle as well, 95. So, just a couple of years after the inaugural release, handed at 2,705. Some nice Rousseau auction. Bunmar from Meunier as well. 3 of those. So like a really nice collection, just in general. Oh yeah, that's right. There was Malkinsor from Sylvain Catillard from 2005. And I think that actually had been in for a couple of weeks, but still there were 3 of those hammered at 800, I think. A little over 800, 805. Some Brolotto, Movilero, continues to sell at really high prices, 550.
Did you see that the 04 Domaine Thierry Allemand Cornat Sans Soufre, which had 3 bids, started at 700, ended up hammering for $1,300?
Yeah, that's wild. That's really wild. I remember seeing, because there was an incredible collection of Allemand in last week, just like multiple cases, which you hardly ever see. And so the Sansoufre, I noticed it because I was like, oh, wow, $700. I'm like, that stuff's not cheap. And it didn't have, I don't think it had any bids until late in the week. I'm kind of curious to see the bidding activity, but yeah, you said hammered at 13?
1,300. What's really interesting is when we look at the history, like we first saw this bottle in 2007, it was $50. So in 2007, if you had purchased 1,000.
Oh boy, here we go. Jeff's wine investment advice. Oh gosh.
1,000 cases of this Sansoufre. No, I mean, but like even as recently, I mean, the in 20.
Yeah, it didn't go up that. I mean, yeah, it didn't go up that much. It is interesting to see between 2013 and 14.
In 95 to 300.
Yeah, from $95 to $300 within a year. That's a lot.
Then we don't see this specific vintage for another 9 years now, almost exactly 9 years, because it was like the end of November of 14 that sold for 300, but in 9 years it went from $300 to $1,300.
Yeah, it's a rare one, and I don't believe it's made in every vintage. I could be wrong, but yeah, it's a hard one to find. So that's impressive. 1,300 for Sansoufre. That's a lot.
Yeah, it looks like it's not made every vintage. I mean, you're talking about some expensive Cornat there. I'm generally not used to super expensive Cornat, but I also don't.
I think that's got to be one of the higher prices paid, 4 figures for Cornats. That's serious.
That is
Alamon's like top of their game. They're right up there with just, as probably the most collectible Cornats there is at the moment.
I mean, it sort of makes me wonder if I don't want to talk investing, but it makes me wonder if it's worth picking up more of the Alamon Cornat, right, from other vintages. If this is something that will continue to.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I never like to make any speculations on investments because that's not how I ever approach wine. But the way it's behaved over the years and the continuing interest, the growing interest, and there's just very limited supply. It's not like they're going to be able to increase production like, some of our domestic friends like to do, where even though it might be considered a quote unquote cold wine, the production increases year after year, and it seems to kind of, I don't know, wash it away a bit. But no, Alamon is serious stuff, and I'm sure it'll continue to appreciate over the years.
We've got 43 lots of Alamon Cornat in auction right now.
It's amazing. So yeah, it looks like there's a whole other drop that went in.
We just have a lot. Let's see. So if I'm looking at everything we have in auction the current week, it looks like there's like a huge drop of it. Not seeing any action on any of them yet, but they're mainly the Chaillot.
Chaillot, yeah.
Chaillot.
Chaillot.
They're all the Chaillot. So I don't know. Interesting to see that. I'd be curious to see where some of those end up hammering.
No, there's Reynard in also. There's Reynard in too.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I must, because I put Chaillot in there. No, you're right. My apologies. I made a mistake. Operator error. Yeah, there's Le Renard in there as well. At the moment, nothing has action on it. I'm curious to see if we'll, like I said, I'm curious to see if we'll see some of those start to tick up a little bit. That's all I've got, I think. Anything else?
I was going to point out a couple other interesting ones. It's funny because I was with a couple people on Friday who were talking about, they're talking about sought after Loire wines. They're really into this Chenin Blanc from Guy Barteau. And I was like, hey, we've got Guy Barteau up right now. Why don't you put a bid in? One of the guys I was talking to had never bought from us. And he's like, how do I do this? And I was like, sign up, create an account. I'll show you how to do it. So, and he, got the app on his phone right there. And they were having a sort of like extended lunch in San Francisco, and I was delivering some wine. And I don't know if he actually scored any of these, but there were a few lots in last week, and 12 Guy Berthaud Saumur Clos de Guichot started at 45 and hammered at 56, which is not, that wild. But this wine it's kind of like one of those to watch, because you never know in a few years, Guy Berthiaud, could be like a couple of the others, like not like necessarily like Clos Rougeard, but it might be heading that direction. So, and there was the other thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, there was an 85, Jess, which reminded me of you actually. There was 85 Huet Clos de Bourgogne that started at $100 and hammered at 215, which seemed like a lot of action on that particular wine, because we've sold this before. It's not exceedingly rare, and even just a couple of years ago, hammered at $85 consistently. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised that went all the way up to 215. It seemed like, why all of a sudden are these Huet wines go for a ton more than reserve? But anyway, those were a couple interesting.
People need to stop competing with me for the Huet wines. Like, that's so good. I literally just had one yesterday. I had with some friends over and opened up a Huet, and my friend was like, "This is amazing. This is so delicious." Like, it was so good. Like,
they've been consistently inexpensive for years and years and years.
I'll take it. I mean, it's like, I feel like I can pick them up for $30, $35, $40 a bottle. And from my perspective, they consistently punch above their weight.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're absolutely, I mean, I find them to be stunningly delicious. And they, all the way from, bone dry to.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
To some sweet wine. So they run the gamut. I especially love them because I feel like I can. There's a lot of versatility with what I feel like I can eat them with. I like Thai food and, and a lot of the Asian cuisines and stuff and Mexican food. And I, from my perspective, they tend to do really well with all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. They're phenomenal. And I think they've just kind of been underrepresented and, sort of pushed aside in the world of, micro cult cuvées in all different parts of the country. So
yeah, that being said, I would strongly advise people to avoid them.
Well, they've also had historically they've had re-releases of phenomenal vintages. Like this 85 looks like it was labeled 10 years ago or something. So when you are able to come about those wines at auction, it's pretty cool because it's obviously in fantastic condition. So
we consistently have a ton of UA.
Yeah, that comes in quite a bit. It's not difficult to find.
It's not difficult to find. Like, we've got 2020 Demi Sec, the Claude de Bourg for $40.99. I mean, 3 bottle lots. There's the Sec, there's Demi Sec. I mean, there's just like a ton of it, and it's all like 30, 40, 45, $50, right?
Yeah.
So reasonably priced, and I'll be damned, ridiculously delicious.
Yeah, no, they're phenomenal. So
they're phenomenal. We always have a lot in, and I'm always like floored at how, why it's not doing better. Like, why it's not more. I mean, not complaining, but it's just like it's such a tremendous value.
Yeah. Speaking of value, I did want to mention a couple other heavy hitter wines, but I'm still surprised. I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but I'm still surprised that 08 Winston Churchill from Paul Roger is not terribly expensive. I think the hammer on that was like $280 or something. And I feel like this is one of those wines that should just, is going to explode because the quality level, and especially the vintage 08, it's gotta be, that's one of those other wines to watch. It's just, I think, it's so phenomenal every year that they release it. And 08 was so great. 280 just looked like a deal to me for that wine in last week's auction. So
well, also,
but yeah, there was a ton of fantastic stuff. There was a bunch of Gonon wines in last week. There's a bunch of wild Spanish and Italian stuff like Marcus and Sets and Chimere, and there's all kinds of crazy Burgundies. There's a bunch of Montevertine and like giant formats, like 3 liters. Just amazing wines.
69 Vega Sicilia Unico. So
yeah.
there was
speaking of crazy expensive Cornas, there was Marcel Juge in last week as well, which we don't see very often. Micro production, extremely collectible. So yeah, and a bunch of Madeira, 1860 Madeira, I think that hammered $640, which
we had some
didn't seem too bad for something so much age on it.
We had some cool Madeira in. I don't know if you saw, but we had an 08 mag of Montebello, which had.
Yeah, I did see that because that was one of my track wines last week. Actually,
I actually took it from 410 to 560. I'm surprised. Like, it's not like Ridge Montebello is a secret, but I feel like it's consistently, like, for what you get, it's a tremendous deal. Especially past vintages. Like, you can pick up Ridge Montebello. I mean, here you're getting a mag for $560 of 08, right? I mean, it's got 15 years of age on it. It's in a Magnum format, phenomenal wine, and you're paying.
Yeah, it competes with, sort of very, very expensive Cabernet, and, I think it's very well respected. You're right. It's still consistently not a bad deal. And especially, like you say, young vintages are under the mailing list price. Yeah. I mean, that's
right. This is the same conversation we have about like Chapelet, Pritchard Hill, Corazon, right? Like there's Pride. There's all these phenomenal, there's all these phenomenal producers. They come in underneath the mailing price. Sorry if you're the producer and listening to this, but they just continue to be just a tremendous deal from my perspective, because like you said, they compete with stuff that's going for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times the price.
Yeah.
And you can pick up these bottles that are just tremendously delicious juice for what I consider to be a song comparatively. And with that, I think we should wrap up today's auction recap.
Yeah.
With WineBid's finally hammered, this has been Jeff McGurn and Paul Walker wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.